So I'm going to come in hot off the top rope with a really spicy take. The Descendents are the model of consistency.
Nah, that's not right.
Wait a minute. What I mean is, they don't release bad music. It's impossible for the combo of Bill Stevenson and Milo Aukerman to churn out any uninspired content. And if there is a criticism of the Descendents, it's that they're a little inconsistent. I know those last two parts didn't really make sense, but let me explain. Because of who they are, the Descendents simply cannot release new music on a regular basis. Kind of goes along with having a punk rock professor in the band. So when we do get new music, even if it's old music, there's a reason to perk up and listen. And that's exactly what we're going to do with the Descendents' newest release, 9th Walnut. It's new, old Descendents. There's a little more nuance to what I'm about to say, but 9th Walnut is essentially a modern rendering of Descendents songs that the band essentially left behind on the way to crafting their masterpiece, 1982's Milo Goes to College. The world stopping as a result of the pandemic was the catalyst that drummer and producer Bill Stevenson needed to pick up the project that has been in the works since both the late 70s and the early 2000s. And just to be clear, not all of these songs are seeing the light of day for the first time. Some of the songs are re-recorded, while others were performed live in about 2002. Also, this is likely the last release that will feature contributions by the classic era lineup. Now, it may not seem like it, but an album like this has a strange amount of pressure tied to it. On the one hand, any new Descendents music should generally be cherished. I mean, it just doesn't happen every day. But this isn't exactly new music.
What am I doing?
In fact, this is music that's close in proximity to an album that so many hold so dear. Look, I don't need to go into extreme detail here, but Milo Goes to College is basically the template that all other pop punk bands would use for like the next 30 years. You know, all the bands that I talk about on this channel all the time. No matter where a band was on the punk to pop spectrum, they were likely doing some sort of homage to the Descendents. I wanna be stereotyped. I wanna be classified. So 9th Walnut has a hell of a legacy to live up to. But does it actually live up to that legacy? Well, not really. But that doesn't mean this album lacks value. It's actually quite the opposite. What the Descendents created on Milo Goes to College is pop punk in its purest possible form. It's like a salad of pop and hardcore punk. But the bands that the Descendents inspired more melted down the elements of pop and punk to create a completely new product. More of a melting pot of pop and punk. Makes sense, right?
Nope.
Now, I know that's an oversimplification of Milo Goes to College, but I do think it illustrates the difference between one style of pop punk and its successors. So, what the hell does any of this have to do with 9th Walnut? Well, on 9th Walnut, the distinction between hardcore punk and like a Beach Boys infused pop sensibility, it's even further delineated. There are so many moments on this album that sound like a Black Flag deep cut, and others that sound like Casey Kasem should be introducing them. Fairly recently, Bill Stevenson remarked that 9th Walnut is a prequel to Milo Goes to College, and I think that's actually spot on. These songs, they're not quite the classics that made it onto Milo Goes to College, but it's not difficult to see how they went from these songs to those songs. And let's be honest, the power of the Descendents is their ability to channel what they are feeling in the moment without any subtlety. When Milo proclaims, you don't need to read between the lines, it's all there. And that spirit is here on 9th Walnut as well. For instance, on Tired of Being Tired, we get something like this. It's really the same vibe, and it's very well executed in both instances. And it's the execution on this album, it truly sets it apart from anything else in their catalog. As I just mentioned, there's an unvarnished honesty in the Descendents. They often touch on themes that are very relevant to their current place and time, without sacrificing what the Descendents actually are. When they were teenagers, it was natural for them to write about parents being overbearing. Parents, why won't they shut up? Parents, that's so fucked up. And 14 years later, they were having real conversations about what it's going to be like as they drift into middle age. Fast forward another 2 decades and the band is singing about being sold synthetic testosterone.
And twice as much fat reduction. And when you add all these great benefits together, you have a formula that other brands simply can't match.
All of these serve as the Descendents going through life while still maintaining that formula that so many people love. And it's weird because 9th and Walnut can't really tap into that same concept in the same way. These songs are really proto Milo Goes to College. They're not going to be reflective of a bunch of guys that are nearly 60.
We are so old.
With that said, the Descendents are still able to inject their current selves into material that was created 40 years ago. And that's what makes 9th and Walnut so special, because it's not a re-release. The band is able to use what they now know how to do and apply it to songs that are very, very old. Really, since the 80s, Bill Stevenson has become a mega punk rock producer. So these songs that were written nearly 40 years ago are able to be produced by somebody with 40 years of seasoning. Beyond that, Milo Aukerman is able to bring his current voice to these tracks. To his credit, Milo has basically maintained the same voice for 4 decades, with a little bit of tweaks here and there. Guess that kind of comes with taking extended breaks. And actually, I think his voice has improved over the years, and his voice, it's a highlight of 9th and Walnut. No, this album does not reach the heights of Milo Goes to College. Nothing can. But it's a classic Descendents album, one that I don't think they could have organically made in normal times. Give it a listen. You won't regret it. Talk to you next time.